Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Australian man, the smooth-voiced Australian dude I've got joining me today, Sammy boy.
What's going on, guys? Good to be back again.
And we have quite the episode. We're diving even deeper into the details that they have given us around Battlefield Portal. So we're going to talk about what you can actually create in Battlefield Portal, as well as what you cannot create in theory. And we're going to touch a little bit on that later on in the episode too. So let's jump right into things. Battlefield Portal, man, it's actually real. We didn't all have a fever dream collectively yesterday or last week.
Yeah, it's good to have had a few days to chill out about it because it's on the day I was a bit like, is this real, or do I need to am I hallucinating? Have I not slept enough? Do I need to go to bed and wake up? So it's good to know that it is actually happening, which is still crazy to think.
Yeah, it definitely is. I woke up this morning. I was like, yeah, that did happen. Wow. And on stream today. So for those of you, a little inside baseball, we are recording this. We usually record every Saturday in the U.S., Sunday in Australia. Last week, we delayed it till after EA Play for obvious reasons, and so that way we didn't run into the situation where we're talking about, like a couple episodes ago, crossplay, and then they announced that crossplay is actually going to be a thing. So we're diving deeper in. So we're still pretty fresh in the world of Battlefield Portal. We're definitely going to see more as the months progress. I mean, we only have less than 3 months away until we actually get the game. And then, like you and many others pointed out, 6 weeks to go until we actually play the beta of Battlefield 2042. Like, what is this timeline
that
we've
is so
got going
close,
on?
man. What the hell? That'll go so quickly.
It does. It does. It's crazy, man. How is it almost like August is here?
Yeah, what the hell?
What's going on? But you and JackFrags, and we were talking about this right before we pressed record. You and JackFrags were the people that got to interview on further details for Battlefield 2042 Portals. Let's just put that into perspective here. JackFrags and you were the only people that got to interview around Battlefield Portals. It's just freaking amazing, man.
Yeah, it was very very humbling and very exciting to get opportunities like that. And I was just saying to Sage before we started that it's wild to me. I've been watching JackFrags for probably 8, 9, 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that there could be others that they got to do the interview, I'm not too sure, but I've only seen myself and Jack upload on it anyway. So the fact that it was just us is it's crazy to me. It's still I'm almost starstruck in a way. It's how am I getting included in these things? It doesn't make sense.
You heard it here first, folks. Sammy Boy is going to be the new JackFrags. Confirmed. But you and JackFrags that we know of for sure got to touch on some of the details around Battlefield Portals, and you got some pretty good access to what is his name? Tompin?
Yeah, Tompin Anderson. Yep.
Around Battlefield Portal, and he's been a figurehead in Battlefield and DICE LA for some time. And talking to him, what was the interaction and the takeaway that you had before we dive into deeper of some of the specific details? What was your biggest takeaway?
I would just say that he was so good at answering questions. He wasn't just saying I wouldn't say, is this possible? And he'd say yes. He would go in depth, and he was really, you could tell he was excited. He really wanted to. There was actually a few questions where I thought he'd finished answering and I was nearly ready to ask the next one. And then he would he wanted to talk about another part of it. So the biggest part I could take away from it was that if he's a representation of the company, they are genuinely excited as much as we are. He was a little kid. We were laughing about little, memories in Battlefield and stuff like that. And he just seemed super excited. So if he, I'd imagine they're all the same. And yeah, that's definitely great to see that they are like 100% excited about this.
It's really good to see how of a passionate community and passionate developers that they have working on this game. It's not just, I mean, there's probably people that just go to it as a job. Like, oh yeah, I'm working on Battlefield today. It's my job. But I'd say the large majority of people that are working on this game are as passionate as the fans are and got involved in development because they had an impactful moment in their past with a Battlefield game.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the type of game that, because it's been around so long, and it's obviously, like you just said, it's got such a great community. Like it's very different than a lot of other shooters out there where they obviously all have communities, but the Battlefield community seems more like a family rather than just like a bunch of people playing the game kind of thing. So I think that combined with, it's been around for like 20 years now. Most people who, like you said, I'm sure there's people who it's just a job and that's fine because it is just a job at the end of the day. But it seems like the majority of people that work there are like excited to go to work every day and they love the game and they play it themselves and stuff, which is definitely, I think that's important to have a lot of people like that on the team.
It is, and it will show too in the long run about what they add and what they don't add. But now let's jump into some of the details. I want to first start off with this specific question, and it's been going around. It's a lot of people's minds, and it's in regards to a battle royale. When they announced the detailed editor for Battlefield Portal, I think a lot of people started wondering: is this something that we can do? Can we create our own battle royale? And they specifically said no, but with a pretty hefty asterisk that they aren't really supporting it at launch, and it won't be to the level that people expect when they see a battle royale, but they can have, he specifically says, they can have experiences similar to a battle royale, just not to the full support.
Judging by what we saw, it seems like really the only reason you won't be able to have a battle royale is partly the like shrinking of the map. That probably won't be something that we can edit in. And then he mentioned this in JackFrags' interview that, like kicking, once you die, you're sort of out and you got to go back to the menu. They won't be able to do that. But you will. I'm pretty certain you'd be able to make it so that maybe there's like, because you can make like a free for all. So somehow I'm trying to think of how you could do it, but I'm pretty sure there'd be a way that when you die, you then maybe you get all your guns removed and you just spawn like way in the corner of the map or something.
Yeah.
So people will definitely be able to make like essentially like a budget version of a battle royale. There will be like some type of feeling of battle royale, but I think the reason they're saying no is because you won't be able to. It won't end your game when you die, and you won't be able to like have the circle shrinking in and stuff like that. But in terms of just like you have one life, and when you die, you change teams to another team. That sort of thing is definitely possible, but it'll just be a janky version of battle royale, really.
Yeah, and this is a pretty consistent through line too, even in your interview, where you ask a question on what you can do with the editor, and they say, well, we don't think you can do that, but I'm not saying no, is basically what they're saying.
Yeah, I asked a question to Tompin about, it was in the same, I kind of mentioned Battle Royale as well, but I brought up something that I thought would be fun in like making the floor is lava, if that's something you could make. And he pretty much said no, but then after he said like, I'm sure there'll be some crazy way that people figure out how to do that. So he essentially said that you can't like manipulate the map so that if you touch the ground, it like damages you. But yeah, there'll be he pretty much didn't want to say no because he kind of knows that the whole team, they don't understand the potential of this because they can try as many things as they want, but we all know when you release something to the general public to probably like 15, 20 million people, they don't know what's going to be able to be made. And like we said in the last podcast, this will just evolve. Like people will get better at making game modes. So it might not really be possible. People might not be smart enough to do it at the start, but yeah, in a year from now, like they might figure out certain ways. Like maybe you can put everyone on one health, and if you can change the fall damage, for example, to be increased, maybe you can make it so that just jumping like a meter damages you. So there will be ways that it's not quite what we expected, but there'll be like little loopholes, I guess, that you can figure out how to make some of these crazy modes. So like you said, they keep saying like no, but with a question mark, because they don't actually know, which kind of just goes to show the power of how crazy this is going to be.
And I think that right there is one of the reasons why there aren't too many games that give the players this amount of customization and this amount of freedom, is because once it's like a Pandora's box. Once you once you open the box, basically anything is possible. If you just look at the modding community around Battlefront, like it started off very basic. I think we were talking about this last episode as well, how it started off very basic, and as the community grew and learned and the tools became better, you saw the whole offline arcade mod that came out, where it changes up and adds things that weren't in the game at all. If they can do that with little official support, like basically zero official support, then you can probably do a lot more with these official implemented tools.
Yeah, the other part is too that like, you know, there's not that many modders. Like it takes a lot to know how to make mods and stuff. Whereas this is going to be dumbed down. It'll still be fairly confusing to like go really in depth, but it's going to be like accessible to everyone. So even just the fact that there's more people that are going to be trying new things, it probably means that it will develop even faster than how the mods did, because, you know, the modders might have figured out something, and once one guy figures it out, he tells the rest of them, and then they all start to do it. Whereas in this, like, because there's going to be so many people working on it, the rate at which it like evolves is probably going to be even faster. So yeah, it's going to be wild to see like how the modes are made at launch compared to 18 months after launch. They're going to be completely different. It's going to be insane.
It is. It made me think of speedrunning. Like speedrunning is a huge community. There's this really good, I think it's min% or something like that. There's a really good YouTube channel on that they get people involved with the specific scenes to make pretty much small documentaries on speedrunning. And it's the same thing. One person will figure it out. And as soon as that one person figures it out, it starts to spread. And as soon as it starts to spread, they can pair it with another technology. So with something like this so widely supported, you're going to have a lot more experiences and a lot more people get involved with it. So you're going to have a lot quicker digestion and just implementation and people learning how the tools work. And you're going to get more of those experiences that you wouldn't really think is possible previously.
Yeah, it's going to be... that's probably the part of the game now that I'm the most interested to see, is like how quickly this all evolves, because I have a feeling it will start really slow, and then every month it's just going to like blow up, and people will find a new like little, you know, a little block of logic that they can toy with that's going to completely change one thing, and then that'll then evolve into something else. So I think for me now, that is like I'm more interested in that to see that than, you know, how quick they're going to make content and new maps and stuff. I don't even. It's become like the background of the game now is like the actual game. Like I'm not as fussed about when we get new maps and new specialists and stuff, because I know that people are just going to be making these modes that, in a way, they are new content. Like it's no different than if they made a new game mode, you'd consider that content. So one that they actually referred to it as user-generated content. And they said that they'd been wanting to sort of implement that into their games for like 10 plus years now. And so, yeah, in a way, it really is just giving us the freedom to make our own content, which is awesome to see.
It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating to see the levels of change in Dice LA, now Ripple Effect, just the change in perspective going into Battlefield 2042 versus the previous games. Honestly, like I don't think even previously we would get something along these lines. My question for you is, if so many teams weren't working on this, would you expect something like this from DICE proper? Or is it because of that they've got so many different teams and DICE can focus on what it does best, those large-scale experiences, that we get something along these lines?
That's a good question. I definitely think that having more people on the team has probably actually helped. That was actually one of the questions I asked as well. Like, because I thought that would be harder. Like, I thought working with more people, it would be harder to organize things in the time zones and all that type of thing. But Tompin pretty much said that, especially because DICE LA, it might be different for the other teams, but because DICE LA have done this a lot, we've known that they've done, obviously they're in a different location than DICE Stockholm, so they've always kind of had to do that. And so at least for their team, he said that this is completely like the normal thing for them. And that, yeah, working with a bunch of teams, it does have its, areas that are kind of hard in terms of linking up and stuff. But I think because they've, in a way, been working on separate stuff, that allows them to not have to worry. Like DICE Stockholm, they're not relying on Ripple Effect to, make like a really core part of the game. They're not relying on them to design the maps, for example, at least for the base game. So they don't need them to do that, if that makes sense. So I think having separate teams, I initially thought it would be a lot harder, but yeah, he pretty much said that has helped them. So I don't know if this is something that DICE, if they made the next Battlefield game is just made by DICE, I don't know if something like this would be possible, at least maybe not to this extent, but then again, because it's been done now, maybe they've got a better understanding of it. So it's hard to tell, but yeah, I think at least for this game, I don't think this would really be possible if it was just DICE working on it by themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think another big part of this whole thing was the level of fan-driven wanting to incorporate the fans, and that it's a love letter to the fans. What from your interview, he seems very from what we talked about before we pressed record, what was his overall feelings towards the community in what he approached? Like, you guys were talking about old experiences with Battlefield. What are you most excited for, having seen that interaction with them, talking about those past games?
One thing he mentioned was that a lot of what brought this on was like back in the older games, there was a lot of there was a pretty big modding community, and that they really like seeing that. And a lot of games sort of don't, for some reason. A lot of games kind of push back against modders because, for whatever reason, I guess a lot of companies might think this is not what we made. We don't really want to see that or whatever. But they seem to be really happy with it, and they've that was a part of the reason why they set it up, was because it's almost like now they're putting mod tools into the game in a way. It's just not with actual content, but in terms of the rules and stuff. It's really, in a way, it's just modding tools. So I think the fact that they enjoy that is just a big thing in itself. Like I said, a lot of games just don't, and the fact that they're fine with that is a pretty big thing, because I think giving freedom to the players is one of the most important things you can do, and it's going to set up the game. Like, the longevity of this game is going to be just unbelievable now, because we can just be playing this. Like, imagine, look at Battlefield 4, how people are still playing that game. Imagine if in 10 years there's another Battlefield that kind of isn't that good and people don't enjoy it as much. So we can just come back to this, and I know for a fact people will still be playing 2042. So yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me from what he was saying about the older experiences and stuff is mostly just the fact that they do enjoy seeing what people create, and they want to essentially buy into that a little bit and let us do even more.
I think that was my favorite part of your interview, was hearing him talk about the love of modding and how that is such a big part of DICE and the Battlefield franchise, and hearing that has definitely raised my trust in this mode and in the future of Battlefield 2042, because like you said, a lot of game studios are just it's weirdly like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the best examples of yes, you can do that has been Sega, with the Sega Mania, or Sonic Mania was a fan-driven thing where the guy was going back and recreating old Sonic maps and adding new spins to it. And Sega saw that and said, "Hey, do you want to work for us?" And he said yes. So they launched that whole game. And then you have on the opposite side where it's Nintendo, where they're just they'll sue you to oblivion. And
they don't even want like it, let alone mods, but they don't even want like the tournaments and stuff, which is it's not even messing with the game. It's literally just people wanting to play like competitively, and they don't even want that. So yeah, there's a pretty stark difference there.
And I think for a while, DICE and Battlefield has been kind of in the middle of those two areas. Like there's a very mod friendly support, and then there's very a negative connotation around it. And now we're finally seeing go back to kind of like, okay, yeah, fans are going to implement something that we as developers wouldn't initially implement it. Instead of getting into our feelings about it, let's look at it and see, oh, hey, this is something that the community is creating. Maybe we should implement it.
I think it's a huge move from them to like sort of break that barrier and just let us have a bit more control, because like we were saying, a lot of companies just don't, I don't know, for whatever reason they just don't want that to be the case. But these guys, instead of getting all like salty about it, they have just completely bought into it, and they're almost like encouraging us to do some crazy stuff, because someone could make a game mode that becomes universally loved, and it could be as like they could add it to the next game in there with Conquest. Like it could be the next big thing that gaming developers might not be able to come up with, because obviously they have their own like plans when they start the game. So they know they're going to make Conquest, they know they're going to make Rush, stuff like that, but they're probably focused on those modes, and they're not really, a lot of the time, and this is with any shooter, they're probably not that like worried about new games, because they've already got like 10, 15 game modes that they've made and everyone loves them. So it's not really a focus for them. And I think giving that up to the players, which obviously we're all not game developers, but that doesn't mean we're not creative people. Like anyone can make, or, come up with ideas for some absolutely wild game modes. So I think this will be a lot bigger, I think, in 10 years than people probably think it is now, because I think there will be a lot of stuff that they learn that, maybe there's a whole new like section of game modes that they go like, damn, this random guy made this, and it's like everyone's playing it now. It's like it's the fan favorite mode, and they can reach out to those people and say like, hey, do you want to help us in the next Battlefield game create an actual like official game mode of that? So it's exciting to see that they've opened up to that, and I think at the very least, like worst case scenario, nothing like that happens, and it doesn't matter. Like they'll just make the next game, and they've already got the other modes. But best case scenario is that they kind of unearth a bunch of just absolutely random game modes that no shooter has ever heard of, and because the players can make it, they're going to come up with some crazy stuff.
It's so awesome to see this open future for Battlefield. Going and shifting gears just a little bit, I want to start talking about some of the concerns there may be around Portal. We talked a little bit about it last week, where it may take people away from the main experience. But I wonder what your feelings are around finding modes, because I know that has always been something that is a very interesting formula. Like if you add this many maps and you add this many modes and then you pair those together, you may have a mode that does not have as much people or as much much people lined up at the lobby. That's my concern. Do you feel like that's going to be a part of Battlefield going forward? Is that this level of control is going to limit how many people are actually playing in the wider lobbies and just creating it?
I think possibly down the line, like when the game's, nearing its end, it could be a bit of an issue in that, it's already, at least, in Australia, there's certain, not so much Battlefield 5, that's always pretty populated, but Battlefield 1 even it's pretty hard to just find like official Conquest servers sometimes. And then if they've got Portal, then it might be in 4 years from now, it might be kind of hard to find a game. So that is definitely something that could be a worry. But at the same time, I think generally when the games are on their way out, like people still find a way to sort of come together, and it's not like there's going to be 100 servers with only one person in them. You know what I mean? I think most people will just be like, I want to make my own mode, but there's a lobby here that has 30 people. I'll just join that. And then everyone kind of has that same mindset and starts to join all in the one game. So I think it kind of, in a way, it kind of corrects itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it is definitely, that's something I'm always paranoid about, because our population here is just not that big. So I'm definitely always a bit worried that in a few years we won't be able to find games. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. And at the end of the day, like I said, I think people generally will just find a way to everyone will just join the lobby that has the most players. They'll, at that point, in 3 years, we've had our fun with Portal, and then it'll probably just go back to being the official modes, I guess, if there's not enough players.
And because of how they've set it up too, like even if it is just one mode that people are playing, if you do have a want to play a different one, you can get the community involved. Like they've been with Battlefront 2015. Like you'll see efforts and movements to get a bunch of people to jump in and fill the lobbies up for maybe a weekend. Mm-hmm. And that may be something that happens for Battlefield 2042 Portals.
Yeah, and I think also something that I didn't even think of was that as much as I'm not the biggest fan of bots, like there's going to be AI. So at the very least, if I really, really want to play like my own custom mode, well then it's up to me to decide whether I just bite the bullet and just play it against bots or whatever the case may be. So I think that backfill sort of system that they have, a lot of people had their issues with it, but it's going to be pretty big at the end of the game, because you can set it up so that, it's just, if you just join the game, it's like you versus 127 bots or whatever, or, there's 127 between both teams. But it doesn't have to stay like that. So if the server just starts to really populate, then they all get kicked and it's the actual players. So I think that is actually a pretty big thing, that you might have to play for half an hour against just bots to wait until the lobby fills up, but at least, it's better than nothing. I'd rather that than just join a lobby that's just me and there's no one else on the map. That would be pretty boring.
Yeah, definitely. So I know it just got announced and it's got a lot of content for it, but I want to ask you, I was playing Battlefield 1 on stream today, and I wonder, what would you love to see from Battlefield 1 get implemented in the live service for Battlefield Portal?
That's a good question, because that was the first question that I asked them in the Q&A, which it's, like you said, that it's just been announced, so it's kind of like almost rude in a way for me to be like, what's the next thing? Because they've just announced this. But that was like my first thought, is like Battlefield 4 and 1. Like I love the ones that they've announced, but 4 and 1 are like probably my two favorites. So I really do hope that we see. It's not a need for me, the content that they've added. If they never add a new or an old map back into the game, I think there's enough there, because they'll be adding new maps. But I definitely want to see some Battlefield 1 content. In terms of what, I would probably say, if I had to pick two maps, I guess, to match the rest, I'd probably go... Oh, man, that's tough. Probably St. Quentin Scar, maybe. And then... maybe Sinai Desert. I think they're probably my two... the two favourites, or at least the two that kind of stand out the most to me. And then really just any weapons. Like, I think it'd be awesome to have some World War One weapons in there. So
Yeah.
that's probably my choices. What about you?
I love Suez. I think
yes.
that one's one of my favorite maps in the entire game. I love just the layout of it, and I would love to see something along those lines. Or I think one that captures battle or World War One very well. It's tied between the France map or Ballroom Blitz.
Yes, they're both. Oh, Ballroom is, that would probably be next on my list. I think that's a fantastic map.
So those would be some of my favorites. I think they would add something different than what's offered in the other Battlefield games, so it could stand out instead of, we just got, like, I know sand maps are really popular just because of the really war like feel, and like pretty. I feel like every single campaign of every single shooter game always takes place in a sand area.
Yeah.
Anakin's shaking in his boots right now. But like you, I want the weapons. I would say I would want the weapons more than even the maps. Like, if it was a choice between the maps or the weapons, I would take the weapons every day.
Absolutely. I think I'd be like completely fine with that if they were like, nah, it's going to be too hard to add like new maps to the game, but you'll gladly add a bunch of weapons. I would, like you said, I'd probably prefer that almost if we have to choose between one or the other. I think having 2042 weapons against a freaking World War One weapon would be just so awesome to see.
Yes.
Those weapons, they were so like, just something about that game is just so special. The sounds and the animations and stuff of those weapons. Certain weapons like the Martini Henry, that is actually the best sounding weapon in existence. That thing sounds absolutely amazing in that game. So having that in a modern setting, that would be so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I want World War One snipers so bad.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think. So it's been a while since I played Battlefield 1 in online. So I booted up probably a couple months ago to play the campaign again, just because I love the campaign so freaking much. And I tried to jump in online, but I couldn't find a lobby on Xbox, sadly. But it's a very vibrant community on PC, surprisingly so. And it just got added for free for Prime members. So I don't know how long that perk is being is around, but if it still is, you should definitely pick it up. So you can get it for free if you are a Prime member, and get it downloaded and jump in, because I think it's one of the highlights of the Battlefield franchise. I think it captures the World War I feel so well. It's so well researched. The level of detail and realism that game offers is so good.
Yeah, to me, it's easily the most unique Battlefield game, and it's just the aesthetic of the game. That's even despite the game. Like, I think the gameplay is fantastic as well, but the gameplay could be not even that good, and I think I'd still play it because it's just so. It's like almost eerie playing. It just feels like you're in a war. Like, and the atmosphere when like the airship comes in and it's like the big horns and it's just raining down hell on everyone. And it's like everything about that game in terms of the look and the feel is probably. I don't think I've ever played a shooter or probably a game in general that has felt so immersive. It's something else, man. It's such a special game.
I think it's Empire's Edge. Empire's Edge is probably, like, when I think of war, I think of that map and just the level of everything that map and the game offers is so good. The people, like people screaming in the trenches. It feels like you're in a war movie. Like you are in World War One.
Yeah, I've never felt that about any, like, for example, Battlefield 5. I've really enjoyed the gameplay and stuff. I've been playing a lot of that, but it doesn't feel, especially because World War II is a lot more like common, and it's, there's a lot more movies about it and stuff, and I think a lot of people know more about World War II, but it doesn't feel to me like it's World War II. It just feels
There are
almost
better
like a
World War II games for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's it almost feels like it's its own reality of World War II.
Yes.
Like it doesn't feel like the real one. It's you can tell the maps and the guns and stuff, they feel World War II, but I don't know, the just general vibe of the game, it doesn't feel like it's World War II to me, and that was probably a big part of why it was one of my least favorites, because the gameplay and stuff, it's still a really fun game to play, but it didn't. After Battlefield 1, I kind of thought like, oh man, that was so good, and now we're getting World War II, which is like my favorite. Well, I don't know if you should say favorite war, because obviously there's no such thing as a good war, but my most the war that I'm the most interested in, I guess. So many like childhood movies from World War II and stuff, and I thought, oh man, Battlefield 1 was so good, now they're going to do that in World War II, and it didn't really have that same sort of feeling. So I think Battlefield 1 definitely nailed that a lot more, and I'm definitely interested to see how it feels in 2042, like on the 1942 maps. I'm interested to see if they can like nail that World War II feeling when you just play, only with World War II weapons and stuff. That'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's like they have all three of those separate games inside of Battlefield 2042. Yeah, it's limited maps and limited weapon selection, but they have reimagined the games, and it's if you could just say, you know what, you can just set up a World War II rotation. You can set up a Bad Company 2 rotation. You can set up a Battlefield 3 rotation. Like, you don't have to stick to everything. Like, if you want that Battlefield World War II experience, but didn't really enjoy Battlefield 5, but really enjoyed Battlefield 1942, but, the graphics are kind of rough, you can go back and you can play that.
Yeah, that's something that I think hasn't really been talked about that much, is that, this is almost like a mini remaster of those games. Just obviously, like you said, less content, but we can, you could literally play 2042 and never once play 2042. You could just play 1942 and only ever play that. And obviously it will get pretty stale because it's only 2 maps. But if you're like a real World War II enthusiast and that's all you want to play, then that option is there. And I think that's pretty awesome that, going back to what we were saying, just the freedom that we get to play how we want is, it's unrivaled. I've never seen a game. Really, the only comparison I have to this is like the Forge in Halo. That's the only thing that I've ever seen that's like on this level. And obviously that had like level editor and stuff, so in a way that had a bit more freedom, but then I think this has a bit more freedom in terms of like the amount of content and the types of game modes and stuff that you can make. So
you're still in Halo.
I've never seen anything. Yeah.
And this one you can travel through time.
Yeah, exactly.
So another question for you. Do you expect that they will expand the content that they already have and the games that they already have, or do you expect that we'll see a Battlefield 4 season of the Battle Pass for Portal, or a Battlefield 1? Or do you expect to see that we're going to have like Bad Company 2, Battlefield 1942, and Battlefield 3? Like, those are the 3 areas that we're going to get, and then they'll maybe expand maps or add different weapons. Do you expect to see that level of support, or do you expect to see a hammering down of also expanding into some other games?
It's kind of hard to tell because they, like in the Q&A that they had at the early reveal, like that was a lot of what people were asking was like, this is awesome. Are we going to get Battlefield 4 and stuff like that? They kind of answered it by saying that they chose these ones because they kind of capture, like for example, Battlefield 3 kind of captures Battlefield 4 at the same time. It's really a very similar game. Obviously the maps aren't the same, but pretty much the weapons are all the same. It's really only a few years apart. So it's hard to say with Battlefield 4 because in a way it feels like, for example, if they added weapons from Battlefield 4, that most of those are probably already in the game because of Battlefield 3. But when it comes to Battlefield 1, and again with Battlefield 5, obviously most of those weapons are in the 1942 game. But Battlefield 1 is kind of different because that's not covered by any of those other games.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very like quiet on a lot of that. They kind of just kept saying like, "Oh, we're just going to talk about what we've talked about today. We don't want to, talk too much about the future." So they were very mysterious about it. But
Yeah.
I think if they're going to add content, I think it would be smart for them to add some other games as well, because as much as I love all the ones they've chosen, but if they add more games, that's more like some people may have never played Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 3, but they have played Battlefield 4. So to them, that might be their own fun experience.
Yeah, that was going to be my following point, is like, why do they necessarily need to offer Battlefield 4 or 1? I mean, a lot of people's experiences, and like this is obviously the fan love letter, but it's been such a long time since people have played Battlefield 3, 1942, or Bad Company 2, that it's almost, while Battlefield 4 is coming up on, it's over 8 years old now. It's very vibrant. It's such a huge community. Well, maybe it's the game most people went back to after they found out that Battlefield 5 wasn't their game, so they've been playing it for a while. So it's almost like, do you necessarily need to have it in Battlefield Portal when it's still pretty vibrant? But also, like, it's a game 8 years ago. Like, it could use some love, especially in the instead of the movement. Like the movement in Battlefield 4 is pretty rough. But so it would definitely benefit from that. And then on the Battlefield 1 side of things, like, it came out in 2016? So it's still pretty recent, but I don't think that should keep them from adding it into the game, honestly.
Yeah, I think the reason like I said, I think a lot of the reason that they chose those ones is because it kind of covers a lot of the errors. But I think a lot of it, like you said, was because that we haven't experienced those for so long. Whereas, for example, if they came out and said we're adding Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, and Battlefield 5, like we've just had Battlefield 5, so a lot of people would be like, oh, I've just played this, I don't need to play it again. So I think if they're going to add new maps, it would be smarter for them to like add those ones later. So a year after launch, we get Battlefield 1, for example, because that kind of gives it an extra year of time since we played it. And so, yeah, I think the choices that they made definitely make sense, both in the errors as well as, they're so like old now that I know so many people that never played Bad Company 2, so they kind of get to play that for the first time. And then even for us that have played it, like it's been, what did that come out in 2010? It's been like probably 10 years since I played that, to be honest, because 2011, I'm pretty sure Black Ops came out, and I probably didn't really play it much after that. So yeah, I think their choices were definitely smart, but I really do hope that they give the other games a go as well, because like you said, even though Battlefield 4, in a way, it feels not that old because we're all kind of still playing it at the moment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is, like it'll be probably 9 years old by the time that we got some maps from it. So I do hope, especially 4 and 1. I think I don't really need Battlefield 5 just because we've just had it.
And we have 1942 in there, so it doesn't really change a whole lot from 1942 to Battlefield 5, other than the actual mechanics of the game. But they're changing it by adding it into Battlefield 2042. So they fixed all those problems.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I would definitely not be opposed, because there's some maps that I love, but that's the one that I need the least. I don't. It's still new enough that if I want to play those maps, I'll just go play Battlefield 5 instead. So yeah. But in terms of Battlefield 4 and 1, that's probably my biggest. At this point, it might be my biggest want for content. I would prefer to get those than a map. If I could sacrifice one like modern map that they're going to make down the line to get Siege of Shanghai and Ballroom Blitz, then I would probably take that, to be honest, because I just love those games so much. But it'll be interesting to see how they go with it.
Yeah, 100%. I want Battlefield 1 content in Battlefield 19 or Battlefield 2042 so bad. Please, come on. Please. But I think with that, we covered a lot of what is around Portal. I look forward to some of the details that start to come out later on as we get more information. We're so close. We're getting closer by the day to the beta as well. So we're going to have a lot more. I expect we'll see a lot more news and release information around that. Dude, it's so freaking fun. It's such a fun time to be in the Battlefield community right now.
Yeah, I kind of forgot because it's been so long, say with Battlefront, it was